Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our February Christian Coaching and Chaplains Town Hall meeting. I am Angela Davis. I am the Communications Director, and it is an honor to host and facilitate today's session. It is always such a blessing to gather with so many of you as we continue to grow as a community of chaplains, caregiver, and ministry leaders. Today's session is going to be a really important one, so I'm so glad that you're able to join us. We're going to be learning about critical incident stress management, also known as CISM. And we have some esteemed presenters with us this morning, Fuzzy Lake and Joanne Fiorello. And they are going to basically guide us in understanding how to recognize and respond to critical incident stress, practical crisis intervention, and basically how to build resilience. They're going to whet our appetite a little bit. And so we look forward to that. But before we begin, I want us to take a moment as chaplains and just sort of center ourselves. And I want to share a just brief devotion and prayer with you. So our devotion this morning is about the chaplain's call to resilience and presence. The scripture that I'm going to use is 2 Corinthians 1, 3-4, and it's from the NIV version. And it says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." As chaplains, we often enter into spaces filled with pain, uncertainty, and crisis. Sometimes we walk into a hospital room where a family is receiving devastating news. Other times we meet someone in the depths of grief or at the edge of despair. These moments test us, not only in our ability to provide spiritual care, but in our capacity to remain steadfast in faith, resilience, and presence. The Apostle Paul reminds us that God is the ultimate source of comfort. Before we can offer peace to others, we must first receive it ourselves. We must allow God to comfort and equip us so that we are pouring out from a place of spiritual abundance rather than depletion. I once heard a story of a chaplain who was called to the bedside of a dying patient. The family was overwhelmed with sorrow, struggling to grasp the reality of their loved one's final moments. The chaplain didn't rush in with words. The chaplain didn't try to fix the pain or offer quick answers. Instead, the chaplain sat in silence, holding the patient's hand, praying in their spirit, and allowing the presence of God to speak louder than any words ever could. That is what we are called to do, not to fix, but to be present, to carry the peace of Christ in spaces of chaos, to remind those who are suffering that they are not alone, and to trust that even in moments where we have no words, God's presence is enough. So as you reflect a little bit today on this devotion, I want you to consider a couple of questions. In what ways have I experienced God's comfort in my own life? How can I better ensure that I am ministering from a place of spiritual abundance rather than depletion? And third, where might God be calling me to simply be present in the lives of those I serve? Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude for the privilege of serving as chaplains and spiritual caregivers. Lord, we acknowledge that we cannot do this work alone. We need your strength, we need your wisdom, and we need your peace. And so, God, as we engage in today's session, let our hearts be open to learning how we can better serve those in crisis. Bless our presenters, bless all of our attendees, and most importantly, God, bless this sacred time together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So again, we are so excited that you're here with us. We've got a couple of announcements before we turn it over to our presenters. And of course, I have to mention our Spiritual Care Conference. We want you to mark your calendars, November 11th through the 14th. And this is going to be a wonderful time of just deeper learning and just connecting. We also want to make those of you aware who may not be that there are payment plans available to make it easier for you to attend. And so if you are interested, just reach out to us. Certainly visit our website for more details. We also have our Chaplain Academy and a lot of CPE courses. And so we want to encourage you again to explore our Academy courses and just kind of look through all of the different programs. There are some wonderful, wonderful programs and partnerships with other organizations and schools. And these programs are designed to help you grow both in your skills and spiritual depth as a chaplain. So we certainly want you to check that out. We also have a newsletter that we put out quarterly. And so if you have a testimony, if you have an article, a story to share, we would love to feature your insights in our next edition. So if you are interested in contributing, just please reach out to me or send an email to our team. This is certainly a wonderful way that you can experience and encourage others on this chaplaincy journey. So as most of you are aware, we are using a new format. We are using this town hall format. We have grown tremendously. And just to be able to accommodate the growth, we've transitioned to this format to make the experience much more smoother. And so we hope that you enjoy it. And so one of the things that we want to just remind some of you of is that there is a Q&A feature for you to ask questions during the session. So even during the presentation, if you think of a question, just go ahead and just type it into the Q&A feature. And we do have somebody who'll be monitoring that, and we will certainly make sure that we do our best to get to all your questions and answer that accordingly. Okay. If you experience for any reason any tech issues, just try to refresh your page and just rejoin the meeting. Okay. I'm going to invite Jim Kirkland, who's our executive director, to kind of share a little bit with you guys, and then we'll turn it over to our presenters.
Good morning. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for where we're at. Most of our team is down here in Orlando, Florida. Just wrapped up a conference with the Association of Biblical Higher Education. We love this organization. Oh my goodness. We all feel like we found our people when we engaged with this institution. They are so loving and so dedicated to training people to serve well Christ, serve Christ well in secular settings and in the world, and to make a difference for Christ. And so they're excited about our bringing Christian chaplaincy to them. We're excited about them allowing us to teach in their universities and seminaries advanced chaplaincy. And there's just a lot of traction going on with it, and we're excited about it. But that's all I'll have to say. Everything Angela said to you, go to the website, check out our Chaplains Academy, bring friends, send money. We need the financial help too. So feel free to donate money. We got to raise like $250,000 over the next couple of years to cover the cost of getting accredited for our Chaplains Academy with the ABHE. And there's just so much going on. We love all of you, especially if you're one of our chaplains. We love you if you're not, but we really love you if you are. So I'm going to go ahead and take myself off, Angela, and let you go back to bringing on Fuzzy and Joanne.
Thanks, Jim. All right, folks, the moment you've been waiting for. There is so much buzz about CISM. These folks are going to be at our conference. We also have a partnership with them where we offer this course on our website. And so if you get excited about what you hear today, I want to invite you to check out the course, come to the conference, but I don't want to delay anymore. And so it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters for today on our session for Critical Incident Stress Management. Fuzzy Lake and Joanne Fiorello. They bring a wealth of experience in this area. And so without further ado, Fuzzy and Joanne, welcome to you.
Thanks, Angela. We get the opportunity to share with all of you a 30,000-foot view of critical incident stress management. In the old days, the assisting individuals in crisis class was 2 days, and the group crisis class was 2 days. A few years later, they moved that into 3 days, those two classes. We do a updated version of that, a refresher version of that for NASA for 2 hours. And now you get 30 minutes of the crash course. And we get the opportunity to share that with you and teach you what we're going to be talking about in CISM. Quite frankly, critical incident stress management changed my life as a pastor, as a business owner, as a person who worked with people all the time, because I would spend hours with people doing pastoral care. And when I switched to start doing critical incident stress management, it changed most of those visits to 30 minutes or less. And we can teach you all how to do that also. The first thing that I have to share with you is this slide, though, and because it's really important for us to understand that CISM works when we take an individual who has dropped below what we call their level of adaptive functioning because of an event, because of a death, because of something else that's happened in their life. Maybe down here in South Carolina, where I live, down here, when you have to put your dog down or do something like that, that's a very critical incident. And what happens is when people are in that place, when they find themselves in an incident, they um, lose a lot of control. They find themselves below that level of adaptive functioning where things are in a fog, where they're in a fog. They can't rationalize. I can tell you the odds are in my favor that every one of you watching today, every one of you on today listening, has been at this place once in your life at least. When somebody close to you dies, when you're in a car accident, when you lose a job, when you have, for some of you, when you have parishioners who you helped and helped and helped and helped turn on you for whatever reason. You drop below your level of adaptive functioning for a wee bit. And down there, we don't function at 100%. We function as if we're in a fog. And lots of different things happen. And we're going to share some of those today, but mainly all of them later on and in our classes. So the biggest thing on this slide I want to share with you, because I don't have time to share all the stuff on this slide, but the biggest thing I want to share with you is you see on the left-hand side where there's a black line that comes down really, really slowly and then moves over horizontally and says cumulative stress causes us to think that is normal. I believe that if we're not careful and if we don't take care of ourselves, that every one of us will walk down that line. We'll have events happen over our period of chaplaincy, over our period of ministry, and we'll have little things happen over a long period of time, and we don't get the real help we need, the real help we need in CISM on a regular basis. And sooner or later, that all builds up to cumulative stress. And when we have all that build up, it allows us to think that that's just normal for us. And I'll give you a real short example. I don't have time to tell this whole story either, but I was for 23 years, well, back up. I spent 10 years of my life drunk or stoned, got sober, then got saved, went into the ministry. In the ministry, I also ran a structural steel fab business, and I was the part-time chaplain at our local hospital. Um, and did lots and lots of work there for 23 years. Uh, Year 23, I get a call in my office to a stillborn baby at the hospital. I went and did all the stuff there that I usually did. The next day, I got called back for reasons that I don't have time to explain today. But we took that little baby out of the cooler in the basement, the morgue, and we wrapped him up in warm blankets and we took him upstairs and laid him on his mama's arms, who she couldn't see the day before because she'd had emergency surgery. She held him for a couple hours. We took him back to the morgue, the nurse and I did, put him back in the cooler. I walked out of the hospital that day and stepped off the curb, and I was completely done. I even said to myself, I'm never going to do that again. And I was so far below my level of adaptive functioning at that point in time in my life that I couldn't even find my truck in the parking lot. And I had parked it in the chaplain's parking spot. And so, long story short, I got some help, talked to my wife. We got scheduled for me to see a psychologist. I had EMDR therapy. And fast forward through that, the second visit that I had with him after he'd done 2.5 hours of backstory, I knew I had some PTSD from childhood, and we don't have time to talk about all that either today. I knew I had some, but I'd always just said, well, as long as I'm helping people, I'll let that sit on a back burner because I'm just going to help people. That's what I'm going to do. And the second visit with my psychologist, he said, I want you to tell me go home and look at your records because you said you had really good records. And I want you to tell me how many people that you've buried, how many children you've buried under the age of 18 in the last 23 years, and how many people that you have buried that have completed suicide in the last 23 years. And I want you to bring that list of first names back to me. And the next week, I brought that back to him. There were 49 children under the age of 18. There were 18 people who completed suicide. And this is what he said to me that was the most important thing that happened to me that day. And really, quite frankly, almost in my life, including getting saved. He said, that you have some PTSD from childhood. There's no doubt in my mind about that. It's minor and we can take care of it easy. You have suffered much more trauma in your ministry than you ever did as a child. And he was right. And I had slowly went down that level of cumulative stress to where I thought my life was normal and I wasn't able to give everybody 100%. I was helping lots of people, but I wasn't able to give them 100%. And with CISM, not only we find that people that take our classes are able to help other people more, but they're also able to help themselves so that they can help other people more. It's an amazing thing. It literally changed my life. And critical incident stress management has changed so many other people's lives because it's given chaplains and pastors a brand new tool in their toolbox that is very brief, it's very simple, and literally in 95% of all cases when you're dealing with somebody, you can help them get back to their level of adaptive functioning in 30 minutes or less. It's unbelievable. And then with all that, that's the teaser. We're going to teach more of that. We have a 3-day class online. We're also going to be at the Cove in the fall, and I'm going to turn it over to Joanne and let her share some stuff about signs and symptoms.
Thank you, Fuzzy. Before we move on to the next slide, I just thought it was important to also point out that green line that says that with pre-incident planning and teaching, it is possible to build resistance and resilience to traumatic events. And there was a study done through the ICISF Foundation with a group of chaplains that even by taking one of these crisis intervention classes, it improved their resistance and their resilience skills even a year later. So that's how impactful taking one of these classes is to what you do every day. Another thing that we often talk about in each of our classes is what we call our information sheet. And this information sheet gives our participants just some key things that we can talk about and look for as far as what are the signs and symptoms of stress. And they can show up physically, they can show up cognitively, emotionally, behaviorally, or even spiritually. So we do a deep dive into each one of those 5 areas, and we talk about what are those signs and symptoms that we need to be looking for. And we like to have our people that participate in one of our interventions, we encourage them to actually take this information sheet home and put it on the refrigerator, put it on the bathroom mirror, Put it somewhere visible at your place of work, and just ask others. If I've been through this traumatic event, this incident, and possibly even grief. Um, just kind of be on the lookout with me. If you notice some things, please point them out to me. What I often like to say is it's difficult when we're in the midst of it to actually see those signs and symptoms or recognize them for ourselves. But it's oftentimes a family member who will be the one to come forward and just make that, make us aware of that. And as an example, by way of a story, we had taught a law enforcement officer about crisis intervention, both for individuals and group. And he had one of these information sheets and did what we asked him to do. He took it home and he put it on his refrigerator. Well, he comes home one day after a very difficult day at work. He takes off his duty belt and puts that away safely. And then he goes to the refrigerator and he opens the door and he grabs a beer and proceeds to take a seat on the couch, and he turns the TV on and he's got the remote in his hand and he's just flipping through the channels. He's basically in his nothing box. He's had a very difficult day. And I believe it was his 10-year-old daughter goes to that refrigerator, takes that information sheet off the refrigerator door. She proceeds to go into the living room and sit next to her dad on that couch. She took the remote out of his hand, turned off that TV, took the beer out of his hand and set that on the coffee table. And lo and behold, she had circled many different signs and symptoms that she had noticed in her daddy. And she said, "Dad, we need to talk about this." So Fuzzy gets a call the next day and starts giving him a hard time about, hey, this is what happened to me last night. I don't really like you very much. But of course, he was joking. He was very appreciative. And I think that was a wake-up call for him, too, that his little girl would, just be so open and honest and transparent with him and want him to be his very best. So that's how important these information sheets are. We've also, this is information sheet is in the group crisis intervention book. And Fuzzy has revamped this, and we now do it in color and on a thicker stock paper. And what we have found is people tend not to throw this piece of paper away. As a matter of fact, even 10 to 15 years later, we've actually had people call us and seek out some assistance. So that's how important this information sheet is, as you'll find out when you take one of our classes.
But back up just a minute, Joanne. I want to share something else on that.
Sure.
Joanne just alluded to the fact that if you give your information out and people remember that, and the reason we hand these sheets out is, Joanne's right. Just 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a 911 dispatch center back in Indiana, where I lived more than 10 years ago. And they had a dispatcher who'd had a call with a baby death the day before. And they knew that this lady needed to talk to somebody. And they found this piece of paper in somebody's desk, and they called the number on that piece of paper to get help. And I was able to do a Zoom call with her that day, because crisis intervention is really important that you get on it as quickly as possible, so we don't allow that trauma to become entrenched. And so that's why that's so important, is making sure that it's in the hands of the people when they need it. So in that whole process, in the 25 years that I was involved in crisis intervention back in Indiana before I moved to South Carolina, I started teaching at about 8 years in, and I just been doing that part-time because of everything else that I was doing. But when I moved to South Carolina, I got a job at a local hospice house, working for hospice. It was a hospice house that had 36 beds, and we averaged about 1.5 to 1.6 deaths a day, somewhere in that neighborhood. And because I was the spiritual care coordinator, I was in charge of all of that. I found myself many times in that process of the first year at the hospice house trying to use crisis intervention wherever I could. And when we teach people how to do one-on-one crisis intervention, we teach them that it only works for one person, as is the one-on-one crisis intervention. When we teach people for group, it only works with a group of people, as is the group crisis intervention. And individual interventions don't really work with groups, and groups don't really work with individuals. And I constantly found myself standing in a circle of people, a nurse, an aide, a mental health professional, and there'd be 3 or 4 of us standing in a circle, me knowing we needed to do crisis intervention, but not knowing how to pull that off because a group crisis intervention takes a long time, and where an individual is supposed to be for one person, and we had 3 or 4 people. And the other thing that we were having happen there at the hospice house, the first couple years, we averaged about 45 to 48% turnover rate. And the owner came to me and said, "How can we fix this?" And I said, "I think we need to have a crisis intervention program implemented inside the house." There were 54 employees, and that was going to cost him uh, probably about $20,000 a year. He didn't want to do that, didn't want to spend the money. The next year, somewhere around that same amount of retention was about 45 to 50% people left. And his wife came to me then and she said, "You know, it cost us about the salary of a person to train a new person. So basically 50 grand a year, 60, maybe 70 at that time, somewhere in that neighborhood, uh, uh, times half of that 54 people. So times 25. Well, that's a lot of money, and that allows a lot of money to be spent on crisis intervention. But we really didn't have anything that I felt like worked in the whole crisis intervention realm, not for cumulative stress. So I went to work and I designed what we call now helps. Helps in crisis, helps in crisis, and in our when we first started it, we called it PASS. We changed it the name to helps. Early on, it was helping employees learn practical solutions in crisis. Since then, because of some guidance from somebody else that we really trust and like, we've changed that to helping everyone learn practical solutions in crisis. And so basically, I developed this helps. It's a group or a one-on-one crisis intervention that works, and it's designed. What it's designed for is to help take away the cumulative stress that comes from everyday life. And we implemented that helps at the hospice house, and in 2 years we changed that 45% retention, that 45% of people leaving, to somewhere around 15%. Just by implementing that and having it done on a regular basis. So basically, this is going to talk about what it's designed for, how many people can participate, who can lead, what are the guidelines, and what are the benefits. And I believe, Joanne, you're going to take it from there.
Yes. So, like Fuzzy was saying, this is an intervention that we can use both one-on-one or in a group type setting, which is really unheard of when we think or talk about the classes through ICISF, the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. And they're very adamant that we don't use an individual intervention within a group, and vice versa. We don't use a group intervention on an individual. And there's been studies done on that where it just does not work. So this is really new and cutting edge information and things that we've learned. And when Fuzzy first implemented this, of course, with anything new, people typically don't like change. And so people were a little reluctant to come to a help session because they really didn't know what to expect or understand. It's kind of like, having to go to the dentist. Nobody wants to do that. But within time, when they saw the results of what was actually happening, not only for themselves, but for the team, then they started asking, when's the next one? When can we do that again? And they were, very structured in offering a help session for each shift at the house. So it didn't matter if you worked nights. Fuzzy showed up in the middle of the night to do a help session. If you work days or weekends, there was an opportunity for you to participate in a help session. And not only that, but Fuzzy recently helped both my husband and I do a helps after the death of a best friend of mine. And this is very recent. She died on February 2nd, so it's just only been about 2 weeks. And her husband asked me to do the service. So I was, while I'm deeply honored and felt very privileged to do that, and very humbled at the same time, I also knew how emotionally charged that was going to be for me. And my husband's an entertainer here in Myrtle Beach. He has a beautiful singing voice. He plays the trumpet. And so I asked him, I said, I need you to help me do this funeral service. And at first he said, I can't. But over time and lots of prayer, he did come to the table, and we both did this by God's grace. But what my husband would tell you is how profoundly helpful it was. And there's basically 4 questions that we go through in a help session. And you just answer each one of those questions. You speak for yourself. It's very important that you don't speak for somebody else. It's not a time to put a hand on a shoulder. It's not a time to tell somebody that you thought that they did a good job. It's just an opportunity to let them speak for themselves and to, feel all the emotions that they're feeling, get out all the thoughts that they're thinking about, and just release that. There's so much power in just being able to release all of those thoughts and those emotions. So if he were in the room with me today, he would definitely tell you that he left the help session feeling so much lighter, just feeling better about everything that had transpired. So it does have some really positive benefits. And I also just wanted to add how meaningful and important Angela's devotion was today as I was sitting there listening to that's also something that we teach, is the power of our presence. Our presence is the present. And also, you'll find when you take one of our classes, they're full of acronyms. So we have an acronym called WAIT, and WAIT stands for Why Am I Talking? And very often, as Fuzzy and I do crisis intervention, either individually or in a group setting, that is, first and foremost in our minds. Why am I talking? It should never be about me. It's always about how the other person is responding or reacting to whatever that crisis or trauma is in their life. So I just wanted to kind of bring that full circle, I guess, today. And thank you for the opportunity. We look forward to hearing what your questions are. You're on mute, Fuzzy.
And just to back up on what Joanne just talked about, Frank, if he was here in this class right now, he would tell you, and he would agree with me, that he is a very close to the cuff person. He doesn't like to share feelings necessarily.
Oh,
and
he does
so
not.
Joanne and I do a Tuesday morning board meeting on Zoom every Tuesday morning. And we almost every Tuesday morning when Frank's getting ready to leave the house, he'll come in and say goodbye. And I'll say something to him about, hey, it's nice to see you, Frank. Go to work, make some money, or something like that. And last Tuesday morning, knowing how desperately I felt like they needed a help session, I said to him, why don't you stay and we can do a helps with you and Joanne over the death of your friend. And he said, no. He said, man, my day is, he looked at his watch and he was making all kinds of excuses. And I did what we teach everybody in crisis intervention. I did exactly what I teach everybody else to do. I motivated him out of the sense of helping Joanne and not worrying about himself. And I said, why don't you do this for Joanne, Frank? And he sat down.
He's all in.
He's all in then. And so basically, like Joanne says, 4 questions, what I do right, what could I done differently, what adversely affected me, and what did I learn? And we're actually going to have breakout sessions for those, for this help session, to teach you all how to do this at the Cove in November. And so please sign up for those. Not only are we going to teach that there, once you learn how to do it, once we teach you how to do it, we also have improved instructor programs where you can be taught how to teach helps and teach it to everybody around you. I personally do one at least once a week with a friend of mine and myself, because I'm not going to go back to sitting in that psychologist office again because I let everything build up on me. I'm going to go back and start working on everything every day, or at least every 2 or 3 days. My guess is that I'm talking to the choir here. All of you have something happen in your lives every other day, or maybe every day. And what's interesting is that subliminal thing that happened once I started teaching helps and we put this together. I found it works very well on my grandchildren, and they don't even know how that I'm doing it helps. They have an issue at school. They come home. They're telling me about it. I'm going, well, what do you think you did right in that instance? What is there anything you could have done differently? What was it about this whole incident that really upset you? And then what did you learn? And they don't have to know that I'm doing that. It's just a conversation, and it works very, very well. And so we're going to teach you all how to do that next fall if you're signed up for our breakout sessions. I believe we have 2 of those. Is that correct, Joanne?
I think
fall?
so. Yep.
Yeah.
2 sessions to choose from.
So, yeah, we're excited to
We
be
are.
there and to be sharing with you all, and excited to give you another tool for your toolbox, because I don't know about you, but I'm positive there's people that are older than me and younger than me on this. But I'm always looking for an extra tool, because I want to be able to use every tool that is at my disposal to help people learn more about how to take care of themselves and to teach them more about Jesus. And so I feel like once we build a rapport with them, and once we help them through a crisis, then we become more credible, and we can share the love of Jesus more substantially. So we're excited. And with that, I'll say probably ready for questions and answers.
I'm gonna stop
Thank you,
sharing my
everybody.
screen.
Yeah, go ahead and stop sharing your screen, and then and we'll move into Q&A in just a quick second. So just a quick story I want to share with everybody. So this helps thing. I've been a chaplain for like 35 years, right? And I was so excited about this collaboration with Lake C.I.S.M, with Fuzzy and Joanne, and offering CISM to our chaplains. And I thought, well, I've never taken it. I better take it before I start telling my chaplains to take it, right? So last fall, I said, all right, I'm gonna bite the bullet, and I took the CISM training. And it was Saturday. We had just finished the course, and we had learned all about the HELPS program, and that I had the little brochure on my desk. And I walked into the living room, sat down, and my son Rob called. He's like 42 years old, and he wanted to share with me something that had happened that day that he was really, really struggling with, and he just wanted to talk with me. And while he was talking, I went back to my office and I said, I'm good. In my mind, I said, I'm going to try this helps thing that Fuzzy had just taught me. Fuzzy and Joanne just taught me. So I grabbed that little sheet and I went back and sat down on my chair, and I just held it up in front of me. Of course, he couldn't see me because I'm on the phone, and I'm looking at it. And so I asked him the first question, and then I let him talk, and then I asked him the second question, and I just followed it. 30 minutes later, we're done, and I'm getting ready to hang up, and I said, Robbie, was that helpful to you today? He said, Dad, that was the best conversation I've ever had with you. So it definitely works. It's just amazing. I'm going to go ahead and bring Angela on, and Barry. I'm going to bring you on the screen too. Barry Surratt is our CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education Program Director. So we'll all participate in a Q&A session here at this point. But I do want to say that yes, come to the conference. You're going to get a double dose of this training. I would encourage you, go to the website, and in the Q&A, I put a link to where you can go to enroll for CISM. It's fully online. It's like 3 intensive days in an online format, offered every other month. And if you purchase the program through our website, through their generosity, we're going to make $100 each, which really helps us out with our ministry. So please purchase the course. Do it through our website. That way, we'll get some financial benefit to help us with our growth. And a lot of people, Fuzzy, were asking about those handouts that you shared on the screen. Could they get a copy of it? I posted in the Q&A a link, or Anne Marie, I think, posted a copy to the link on your website where they can buy packets of them for $39.95 or whatever it is. So you can buy those handouts or those refrigerator things that they were talking about. So
Absolutely.
with that, we'll just let Anne Marie sort of call out the questions that she's picked out. If anybody asked any questions, so Anne Marie, do we have any to answer?
So the biggest question was about the information sheet. That kind of blew everything up. So the link is there, and you'll be able to also see it with the recording. So that was the biggest question. People also wanted to know what the letters helps were. I put that in the Q&A reply as well. And as far as the conference, I just want to put in a plug for the conference. Please register. For those of you that might be able to assist with our scholarship process, if you were able to donate $28 a month for 10 months, you would be able to give someone a partial scholarship to attend the conference. So if you are financially able to do that, please consider that.
One of the things that we're doing, because if you go to the website and want to buy those information sheets, now Joanne and I didn't feel like it was financially feasible to sell one at a time, and that's why they come in packets. It just didn't make sense to sell one and ship it and pay as much for shipping as it did for. And the fact is, with one of them, it'd be really easy to get it bent in shipment with USPS. So we didn't want to take that chance. So that's why they're in packets. I believe, right, 10, Joanne? It's the smallest you can
I think
buy.
it's 20 sheets in
20.
in one packet.
Yeah. So, and if they want large amounts, obviously, they just give us a email, shoot us an email, call or whatever, and we'll work something out for that, discounts for large organizations. But just one other little tidbit on that, helping everyone. The reason we really were, quite frankly, open to changing it from helping employees learn practical solutions in crisis, which I originally built and then copyrighted because, quite frankly, I didn't want anybody stealing it from me, and it would be easy for that to happen. I was also just as open to changing, helping everyone, because recently Joanne and I have implemented this in churches. And the whole crisis intervention program is called Crisis and Grief in the Church. And what happened is that we use this HELPS program, and we've used it several times with just mission teams. And then say we teach a lot of Billy Graham rapid response team members, and once they're deployed, we ask them to use the helps every night that they're deployed, and that way they don't come home after a week of deployment and have all this heavy stuff built up on them. And so every night they meet with either a friend or with the group, and they go through these helps questions. And it's worked really, really well. We get rave reviews about it, and it's just something that we also find that, everybody would understand that was listening to me that in the Christian world where there are some people are supposed to be nice and all that, you still have crisis, and you still have people that aren't nice. That's just the way it is. And what we find is teaching it to staff, and then have staff doing a one-on-one, doing this helps once a week after or before a staff meeting is very helpful, because it allows them to let go of, they don't have to share names or anything, but so and so said something really, really bad to me last week, and they were not very nice at all to me. And then you just go through the questions, in that process, what did I do right? And somebody, just recently I did one with somebody, and they said, well, I didn't hit them. I felt like I wanted to, but I didn't. What could you have done differently? They didn't feel like they could do anything differently. What was it that adversely affected me? Well, I really trusted this person and really respected this person, and I lost all respect for them when they started eating me like they were a piranha and I was fresh meat. And then what did I learn? I learned that I just gotta know that everybody's going to have a bad day. And that what hurt you, the question I ask a lot of times is, what hurt you so bad that you have to hurt me this bad? Because there's almost always that's what's happening. So we're teaching it to everyone now. It's morphed from hospice to fire department, police department, nurses, hospitals, churches, organizations. It just works. Grandchildren,
Astronauts.
astronauts, yeah,
Children,
yeah, children,
Children.
older children.
Older
yeah.
children.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
really excellent. And Fuzzy, we have a lot of chaplains that are like with workforce chaplains out of Indianapolis. A great collaboration we have. They're fantastic chaplains, but they're working in a workplace environment. Helps is going to be excellent for them. We have prison ministry and jail ministry chaplains. They're going in and they're talking to the residents, the inmates that are there, and it applies in so many areas. We really, really recommend this. So great opportunity for our chaplains to get some training that's going to help them immediately to become a better chaplain. Anne-Marie, I already
this
see a
is-
couple of questions to ask, so I'm gonna go ahead and
questions are flying in now. So one of the biggest questions is, how is your process different than traumatic event management through the military, or how is it different with individual versus group intervention? And then how is it different between regular CISM and HELPS? So a lot of comparison type questions.
all very.
And there's more, but that I'm lumping all of those questions into one question, but there's more questions.
So
all very good questions.
State that question again, Anne-Marie, as a question for Fuzzy to answer.
So the question is, how is your program similar and or different than what people are getting through the military and through other CISM type courses that people are taking?
And the military calls it traumatic event management.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, and I know that because we teach some militaries, Coast Guard specifically, but some other people, and that I don't think necessarily it's much different than that. It's just not a military process. It's a very general population process. It is not meant to take the place of one-on-one crisis intervention and or group crisis intervention. It's just meant to it just augments those two, because you're taught to do one-on-one with one person, and you're taught to do group with groups. Typically, if you do a group crisis intervention, it takes a very long time to do that. And when this is literally with a group of 8 people or less, you can do this in 30 minutes. But it allows that cumulative stress not to be built up, not to get built up over a period of time. So I wouldn't say that, I mean, we're not out there to change the world. We're just out there just to add a tool to the toolbox. And what we were using at the hospice house wasn't working. And I can tell you that now, had I known now what I know now, I'd known then, I wish I had kept really, really good records of what that looked like as far as helping the workforce not be so much turnover. But unfortunately, we never even thought about it. Never thought we'd have so much success. Never thought we'd go from 45% turnover to 15 or 20. I mean, I had no idea it would do that, but it did that. And even
And
since then, they've been bought out by a large hospital, and they've kind of said, let's not do that anymore. And now their turnover rate is back up again. So, did you have something you want to add, Joanne?
I was just going to talk for a minute about, I think in today's workforce culture, employees just want to know that their employer cares about them. And they haven't felt that for a very long time. And one of the reasons I'm saying that is I recently had an opportunity to utilize a group intervention, what we call a critical incident stress debriefing, for a line of duty death at a hospice here locally. And I mean, if you can just imagine for a minute losing someone very suddenly that you work with, if not every day that you talk to this person, it might even, every week you're having a meeting with this person, you hear their voice, you see their face, and now all of a sudden they're not here. And so not only was the leadership team way below their line of adaptive functioning, all of the staff was way below their line of adaptive functioning. And they needed help, and they needed help right away. And so we were able to come in and do this group intervention. We did two. We did one for leadership and we did one for the staff. And that profoundly changed the trajectory of their healing. And this wasn't the first time they'd been through this. They'd had an employee die about 6 years before. And so it was also bringing up all those old memories of everything that they had gone through with that. So it's just really beautiful to watch this unfold at a time when the need for help is so high and they're just very receptive. And I can't tell you how many times I heard from the leadership, don't know what we would have done without you guys. And again, it's not about us getting a pat on the back. It certainly is not. It's about doing the right thing. That's what Jesus would do. Jesus, he did the right thing all the time. And this is a simple, easy, effective way to help somebody at a moment when it's so critically important to them.
And to clarify, in our 3-day class, we teach assisting individuals in crisis and group crisis intervention as per ICISF guidelines.
Right.
Your certificate will come from them directly. We just teach the helps as a bonus section, just to
Yes.
augment those two.
Yep. And we do that in every class, whether it's, just the one-on-one assisting individuals or just the group class, or whether it's the 3-day class. If you take anything from Lake C.I.S.M training, you're gonna be taught the helps. Yeah.
So that's actually a good lead into one of the questions you mentioned, Joanne, about there was a death 6 years ago, and then there was this recent death. And one of the questions is, you mentioned that CISM program is more successful if done within 24 to 48 hours. With helps, do you still see a great benefit when doing this with trauma from years ago?
Let me take that.
Go ahead, Fuzzy.
So we find that there is a guideline to do both assisting individuals and group crisis. And that guideline is still what we call set in sand. It's not really set in stone. I did a CISD, or critical incident stress debriefing, for a family in the Philippines 9 months after their trauma, and it worked very, very well. That is not typical, and I wouldn't do it every day. However, it does work after it's been done a long time. We find the helps is much more helpful. I'm sorry about using all the helps things, but the helps is much more helpful done as quickly as possible, because it doesn't allow that trauma or that feelings to become entranced. It doesn't allow you to hold them in and let another one build in on top of it. It doesn't allow that to do that. So the quicker the better for that, we find.
And
But it's
I was just going to add to that. It also depends on the person's psychological readiness. So going back to the helps that Fuzzy did with my husband and I, he was asking me almost immediately upon my friend's death, how about if we do a help session? And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm pushing him away. I'm like, I knew I probably needed to do it, but I just wasn't ready to walk through that. But then after the funeral was over, and I had really time to process everything. And oftentimes we do have to wait for the funeral. It's just in order to be psychologically ready and have crisis intervention be truly effective, we have to wait for that and we have to watch for it. So.
And we teach people how important assessment is. And I can tell you in that conversation with Joanne, even though it was virtual, she was saying no, but her face was saying hell no. just say,
Yeah.
not ready to talk about that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
One of
Fuzzy,
the
could you talk-
questions is the class that is available that they can purchase through Christian Chaplains and Coaching, the link that Jim put in. Is that the same, or how is that different than what will be offered at the conference?
That is completely different. That is a 3-day class, and at the conference, we're only going to teach helps. Does that make sense?
Yes. So at the conference, you're going to have a plenary session where you're going to be discussing critical incidents and why is it so important to get the training, and what is expected of people generally speaking. And then in your workshop, which you'll be doing twice, those are hour-and-a-half sessions, you're going to be giving sort of an overview of the training that we get here, plus the help specific training, which is wonderful that you're going to offer that at the conference. But for those that want to actually get the CISM GRIN certification, they need to sign up for the course. That's 3 full days of intensive training that you do through Zoom, like a all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and then you become CISM GRIN certified. And what does GRIN stand for?
It stands for group, GR, and individual,
Smile on
IN.
your face. So it's not smile while you're doing it, right? Okay.
Well, you can
No.
smile. Yeah. Our reviews will tell you that we get smiles for our classes. So.
And that the 2 workshops that we're doing at the Cove in the fall, not only will we be teaching you the helps program, but you'll also have time within that 90-minute session. You'll have time to practice that yourself. So you'll get a real life taste of how that actually works. And I think then that's kind of really when the light bulb goes off, because we always like to make sure that we give you an opportunity to practice. We don't want to just leave you with a bunch of information, but we're going to talk it out and let you actually see it work firsthand.
Right. Yeah, this is fantastic. Well, we're coming down on the end of our time, Angela, so
Oh my goodness.
it's time to bring it to a close. I see Barry wants to make a comment. Go ahead, Barry.
Just going to jump in here.
Can't hear you, Barry. Your microphone's not working.
What about now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Mike Bartley, who is our Chaplains Academy director, just took your class, I think last week, and he and I have talked about it. I've done some CISM training, and he just had nothing but wonderful things to say about that. So we're so glad to have you part of our Chaplains Academy, and look forward to seeing you in person at the Cove, and hopefully this will inspire people to sign up and take the course. And I think you offer them every other month or something like that. Is that what it is? You might speak to that just briefly, but thank you for presenting today.
Yeah,
Right,
go
yeah,
to the link that Jim put on the thing, and you can see we're getting ready to put links on for the rest of the year too. We're going to do that on Tuesday,
That's
actually.
great. Great. So, Angela, when you do the follow-up from today's meeting, we'll hopefully have the recording done in a few days so we can share the link to the recording from the meeting. Also include a link to the conference registration and a link to their handouts, those forms that they can purchase if they want to do that. But as far as the conference goes, guys, we got 120 rooms at the Cove. We've got 75 of them already booked. So and this is only February, so I really encourage you to go and register. If you need to get a payment plan, go ahead and do that. But go make your registration so that you can spend the time with us at the Cove, and you don't have to stay off-site at a hotel, which will it's not gonna be quite as fun as just being with us at the event, right? Because the Cove is an amazing place. Andrew, do you have any closing comments?
I don't. Well, I do want to say thank you so much to Joanne and Fuzzy for just the work that you're doing and just this helps ministry that is going to be so beneficial to all of us as chaplains. As a reminder, folks, if you're interested in the certification, go to our website, sign up, come to the conference, make sure you register, and please, please, please contribute to our newsletter and spread the word about our town halls and invite another chaplain and some friends. One confession, I am stealing the WAIT acronym. Why am I talking? And I'm going to use it. And with that being said, I just want to thank all of you for being here this morning. God bless you. And we hope to see you next time at our monthly chaplains meeting.